Hi everybody, and welcome back to another special episode of Design to Move. My name is Ryan Maxwell. We have a special guest today with us, Kate Heckman.
Hi, I'm Kate Heckman, and I'm an occupational therapist and a corrective exercise specialist. I work in youth hockey and help coach.
Today we're going to go over general and specific warm-ups for youth athletic programming. We understand that lots of times when kids get into their activities, they haven't been properly warmed up, and due to which we have an increased risk of injury. We know that with the right warm-up and with the right sequence of exercises, we can prevent that from occurring, and it's not going to take a lot of time to do so. So today we're going to go through a handful of exercises that are going to prepare your body for your athletics and then give you some releases so that you can open up and increase the mobility of the joints that are typically tight. We're really lucky to have Kate here with us today. She's going to be sharing her wealth of information on the ankles, knees, hips, spine, and trunk positioning so that we can get your body fully equipped and prepared to engage in the activities that you're going to get involved in. If you have any questions on any of the activities that we go over today, feel free to reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. And we have a lot to go over, so let's get right into the program.
Our first segment, we're going to be covering a general warm-up to get your cardiovascular system ready.
That's right. This is going to be an 8-minute series where we block it in 2-minute increments where we systematically increase the intensity to the point where you get your anaerobic threshold. This is going to get your body prepared for exercise. The exercises selected were chosen to steadily increase the heart rate so that you start in an aerobic energy system and slowly progress your energy system to an anaerobic ceiling, which is roughly 90 to 95% of your total capacity for work. You'll notice that the exercises increase in complexity and intensity over the course of the 8 minutes.
Now that we have our general warm-up completed and our cardiovascular system is flowing blood through our body, we're going to transition into a 3D breathing drill.
This is where we're going to target your body's diaphragm and abdominals together synergistically. What people don't realize is when you breathe in deeply, your abdominals stretch, and that can make your hips hypermobile and give you less torque and power out of your legs. So we want to show you how to engage both your abdominal pressure and your diaphragm together so that you can increase your core strength and be more powerful through your hips, your legs, and your appendages. Let's get right to it. This exercise teaches you how to use your spinal extensors and flexors in unison. Extending the spine means that your back arches. Flexing your spine means that it rounds your haunches. As you pull your heels back and flex your abdominals, your pelvis will rotate under and you'll engage your abdominal flexors. This isn't called abdominal pressure. As you increase abdominal pressure, breathe in with your diaphragm. Your diaphragm will actually lift your spine in extension, so you're actually fighting the pressure of the diaphragm through your abdominal pressure. Breathe in for 2 seconds so that you inflate your lungs and hold the pressure by maintaining the ribs downward in a depressed state. As you relax and you breathe out, you'll breathe all the air from your lungs, stretching the diaphragm, and you'll extend and arch your spine from the ground. Learning how to co-contract these two mechanisms will create stability for both the lumbar and thoracic portions of your spine. Make sure to engage your hamstrings as you tilt your hips under and keep your shoulders drawn back. You'll complete the movement for 2 minutes. Now that we've gotten through our 3D breathing, we've laced our transverse abdominis up so that our pelvis is nice and stable, we're going to draw our attention to our ankles. Oftentimes our ankles don't have enough mobility because our feet aren't strong enough, and so the force from the ground is absorbed through the ankle musculature like the gastrocs and the soleus, the muscles that are responsible for planting your toe down, and that reduces the mobility of the ankle so that it has to go up into the next segment, which is normally the knee. Now, unfortunately, that can lead to an increase in injury cycles like ACL injuries or meniscus tears. So pretty important that we get the mobility back into the ankle by lengthening the muscles on the backside of the calf, like the gastrocs and the soleus, while increasing the strength of the muscles on the front of the shin, like the tibialis muscles, the ones that pull your toes up. These are really important, and again, something that you're going to want to put into your practice all the time. So let's get right to our stretching. This is an example of a soft tissue mobilization of the calf muscles. Using a lacrosse ball, you'll apply the opposite leg to add additional pressure and hold the ball on the muscle for 30 seconds to 1 minute. The muscle will start to relax, and as it does, you'll pull your toe towards your shin and rotate the toe inward. This will floss the muscle under the pressure of the ball and help to elongate the tissues so that when you relax the pressure from the stretch, you should be able to sink in deeper to the muscle bed. Complete the action 6 to 10 times, breathing in and extending through the spine as you draw the toe up, and then relaxing and letting the foot fall back. Complete the release for roughly 1 to 2 minutes. Once you've completed your soft tissue release, you'll want to go into a push-pull or neuromuscular stretch. Placing the braced leg behind you, you'll put your weight into your toe box and bring your weight forward so that your shin comes closer to your toes. Make sure that your heel stays on the ground. Once you've gotten to the end cap of your range of motion, you'll push into your toe box, flexing the calf and holding it there for 6 seconds, overstimulating the muscle and facilitating a natural stretch reflex. Sink back down into your toes and draw your body weight forward, making sure that your hips are parallel to the floor and parallel to the wall in front of you. You'll go through multiple push-pull releases by pushing into the toe box for 6 seconds, allowing the muscle to relax for 2 seconds, and then drawing your weight back into the toe box and seeking an additional range of motion. You can go through this process 6 to 10 times, which should take you roughly 2 minutes. Laying in a supine position, you'll drape an exercise band around the roof of the affected leg. You'll pull the toe towards the shin and rotate the foot inward towards the midline of the body. Make sure to keep your glute clenched and your quad clenched on the leg that we're working. This will help to stabilize the femur and put the focus on the rotation of the ankle. You'll also notice the opposite knee is bent at 90 degrees with the heel on the floor. The spine is supported and the head is tucked so that you're maintaining an upright vertical posture. Complete 2 sets of 20 repetitions on both ankles.
This next segment, we're going to be addressing the pelvis and the legs. We have large muscle groups like the quads and the hamstrings that tend to be overused. Those overused muscles can create hypermobility at the pelvis, which can lead to injury.
That's right, Kate. So that's why today we're going to show you how to reduce some of the tension in the quads and especially the lateral hamstrings so that we can turn on some of the underdeveloped muscle groups like the medial hamstrings and the glute medius, both of which are responsible for keeping the pelvis stable and the knees stable and healthy. So let's get right to it. This is a soft tissue release of the quadricep muscles using a foam core ball. Split your stance so that the affected leg is on top of the ball and your leg is in extension. Your opposite leg is in flexion and off to the side of the body. The weight is being maintained on the braced knee and forearm on the same side of the body. Once you've held the pressure on the muscle for roughly 30 seconds, you can begin to bend the knee and pull the muscle through the pressure of the ball. This is called again a pin and stretch technique. You can breathe out, flexing the glute as you bend the knee, and then breathe in and let the weight go back into the ball and sink deeper into the muscle bed. Complete the technique 6 to 10 times before you move on to the next side. Once you've completed the soft tissue release of your quadricep, you'll go into a push-pull or neuromuscular stretch of the same muscle. The affected leg would be on the floor with the knee braced on the ground. As the opposite leg goes into flexion, you'll push across the body, engaging the oblique on the same hemisphere as the affected side. Make sure to tuck the tailbone under to support the pelvis and keep your glute contracted. If the glute releases, you'll know that you've gone too deep into the stretch. Make sure to breathe all the air out of your lungs as you push forward and lift the opposite leg up into flexion. After you've gone through 3 to 4 cycles of the stretch, you can push your toe into the ground, extending your knee so that you flex the quad and hold the quad under pressure for 6 seconds. Once you've released it, give the muscle 2 seconds to release, tuck the tailbone under, breathe out, lean forward, and bring the opposite leg up into flexion. You can go through this PNF stretch protocol for 3 to 6 times. This is a soft tissue release of your hamstring using a foam core ball. From a seated position, you'll drape your leg on top of a foam core ball and allow it to sit there for roughly 30 seconds. Once the muscle has subsided its tension, you can begin to straighten the knee into extension and pull your toe up and towards your shin to elongate the muscle. Make sure that the tension of the muscle isn't so great that it pulls your pelvis under and begins to round your spine. It helps to extend your spine and push the opposite heel into the ground so that you can support your pelvis and make sure that the hamstring doesn't pull the pelvis out of alignment. Go through the position through the pin and stretch 6 to 10 times, making note that the muscle can soften and the ball can go deeper into the belly of the muscle with each iteration. Once you've completed the soft tissue release of the hamstring, you can once again go into the push-pull release like we did on the quad and the calves. With the leg in front of you in flexion, you'll pull the toe up towards your shin, once again stretching through the calf and hamstring, and sit down into flexion through your hip, making note that your back doesn't round or hunch over. As you do so, draw the opposite arm into flexion and rotate through your torso, bringing your ribs in closer to your pelvis. You can assist with the stretch by drawing the opposite arm back into flexion. Once you've gotten to your in-calf range of motion where there's no pain, you can bend the knee for 6 seconds to again fatigue and overstimulate the hamstring so that once you relax it, you can get a deeper range of motion without pain. Make sure that you don't feel any tingling or tenderness in the hamstring as you go deeper and deeper into your range of motion, and make note that you don't create any hypermotion through your pelvis and or your back. If you see this, you'll see your back round and your pelvis will rotate inward on the same hemisphere. Complete the push-pull release 3 to 6 times before you move on to the second leg. This is a medial hamstring activation. In order to target the muscle, you'll want to drape an exercise band around your heel and rotate your toe internally. Make note that the toe does not rotate out and that the knee doesn't rotate open as well. If the quad on the affected leg is tight, you'll also see the hip hike up and your hip will move up from the floor. You'll want to make sure that that doesn't occur, and if you see that, you'll want to reduce your range of motion by reducing the flexion in your knee. Make sure to breathe in, bending the knee, keeping the toe in, and breathe out as the leg comes back to the floor. If you have it available, keep the arm off the floor in a retracted position on the same side of the body, with the opposite arm on the opposite side in extension. You'll want to complete 2 sets of 20 repetitions on both sides of the body. This exercise is an example of a single leg balance to lateral walk using a knee band. This is going to add abduction pressure to the hips so that you engage your glute medius as you bring your leg under you in hip extension. You'll notice that Kate is bringing her leg all the way up into hip flexion, and her opposite leg is going into full hip extension at both the knee and the hip. Both are extended. She's able to keep her center of mass right over her pelvis, and she doesn't have an excessive forward lean through her trunk. She's staying over her hips. She's doing a really good job of keeping her weight in her heel as she pushes her leg into the ground, pulling her knee behind her into extension as her opposite leg goes into flexion. Make sure to breathe out as you sink down into your squat, breathing in as you lift your body weight up towards that single leg balance. You'll also notice that Kate comes up into a single leg balance and rotates her trunk inward on the same side as the leg that's in extension, flexing the external oblique and helping to support the pelvis through the engagement of her ribs and oblique on that same side. Make sure to tuck your chin and keep your gaze with your spine as you sink down so that your neck doesn't go into flexion. You'll want to complete 2 sets of 20 repetitions on one hip before you switch directions and go to the opposite side of the body. Our last segment is on addressing the asymmetrical muscular relationships in the body. Oftentimes, because of our anatomy and the fact that we do redundant movement patterns, like open the car door the same way every single time, our bodies will develop strength imbalances on one side of the body over the other, and that leads to axial rotation pressure, where we're going to create an apex of tension in certain areas like your knee, your hips, or your spine that can lead to common injury cycles. That's why today we're going to show you how to engage an entire sling of muscles on the traditionally underactive anterior oblique sling, which has to do with the oblique external on the left hemisphere that attaches to the rib cage, the internal oblique sling on the opposite pelvis, and the groin and flexors on that same side. It's an important thing that we get the balancing of our rib cage down so that the angle of the rib cage becomes more neutral, and that'll help to keep the pelvis and legs stable and healthy so we can avoid a lot of the common issues that come from that. After this last exercise, your body's going to be able to perform at its peak potential and you'll be ready for your game. let's get right to it. This is an example of an external oblique crunch using a wall for isometric pressure to target the internal and external oblique on the left side of the body. I'm bracing against the wall with my leg and torso firmly against the wall. You'll notice that I have an exercise band around my knees. I'm using that to add additional pressure from my extensors on my left hemisphere so that my glute and hamstrings fire while using the flexors on the opposite side. You would see this in your traditional gait pattern in mid-stance phase of gait, as you're using your flexors on the lifted leg that's suspended and your glute on the extended leg that's braced. We want to make note that we want to target the external oblique on the left hemisphere with the internal oblique on the right hemisphere. We're breathing in as we come up. I'm supporting my head with my hand and keeping my gaze at my left elbow. I'm pushing my head into my fingertips and keeping my head in line with my torso, making note that I'm using my abdominals to support the torso and lift it from the ground and not my neck flexors. As I breathe in, I rotate into the wall and push in, breathing out and slowly come back down to the ground. You'll want to complete 2 sets of 20 repetitions. Thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of Design to Move. Remember, this one was on sports ready warm-ups. We showed you how to do a general warm-up, which was about engaging your cardiovascular system and increasing your core temperature so your blood vessels dilated and you got oxygen to your muscles so that they could work at their best. We showed you how to increase the strength of your transverse abdominis to protect your spine, hold your ribs down, and contain your diaphragm. We also showed you how to balance out the muscles throughout the legs and hips so that the body was working with the right sets of muscles that we know are going to prevent injury. These were prehabilitation drills to prevent common injury cycles from occurring. If you continue to do these things, it should protect your body and allow you to stay in the game and develop to your potential. If you have any questions on anything that we went over today, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. My name is Ryan Maxwell.
And I'm Kate Heckerman.
Your body's designed to move, so let's all stay in motion, and we'll see you next time for another episode.